At the onset of COVID-19 in Kenya, the Matatu industry was one of the hardest hit sectors as the government moved in to stem the spread of the deadly virus. 1 year later, and the once stringent measures have now been relaxed, and the sector is once again carrying passengers at full capacity. But has this changed the fortunes of this sector, which is now reeling from other challenges, such as an increase in fuel prices? This afternoon, we focus on the recovery of this sector and how that is taking shape. Good afternoon. This is Business Now. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. Let's take a look at the highlights. Matatu sector on the edge despite full capacity measures adopted as a post-recovery plan. Kenya Private Sector Alliance now partnering with the Matatu industry to boost vaccination efforts. And in our Made in Kenya series, Kitui County Government invests in block-making factory to increase youth employment. And like we said, we're focusing on the Matatu sector, its recovery, and of course the safety of passengers who use public transport every single day in this country. So we're going to talk about this today with one of my guests who's not a stranger on this show, has been here a few times before, maybe once before. Edwin Mukabana, who's the chair of the Federation of Public Transport Sector and is also the managing director of the Kenya Bus Service. He'll be joining us, as well as Wilfred Bosire Mocheche, who is with the Matatu Crew Welfare Association. We'll be talking about the transport sector, but we'll also be taking a look at how things are going on the ground. Our Marianne Nyambura will be live for us from Nakuru, and our Faisal Ahmed will be here on the streets of Nairobi taking a look at the Matatu sector and speaking to you as well, what your experience has been like. It's been about 6 weeks since the resumption of full capacity in all public service vehicles. So what's your take on that? The hashtag is Business Now at Citizen TV Kenya and at Yvonne Okwara. I'm looking forward to your feedback on this as well. I'm seeing a couple of tweets on that already. Now we'll get into that conversation in a moment, but first let's take a look at the stories that are making headlines in the world of business here on the program this afternoon. And I'd like us to begin with the Senate Committee on Agriculture that is scheduled to have a meeting this afternoon on the status of Mumias sugar. The committee will be meeting the miller's receiver manager Rao to discuss the impending takeover of the struggling sugar mill, which is still under receivership. And in other news, shipping time between Nairobi and Dubai can now be done in under 3 days. According to Africa Freight Systems, aside from the fast shipping times, credit advances can also be made to traders to top up purchase of goods and also pay for the importation fee. Speaking here in Nairobi during a conference aimed at promoting and accelerating the cargo shipping business into Kenya, Africa Freight Systems CEO for UAE and Africa, Vincent Brank, assured importers of goods that the shipping firm will deliver goods from Dubai to Kenya in 3 days by air and 12 to 14 days by sea. And finally, Absa Bank Kenya has kicked off a digital literacy enhancement program targeting at least 66 computer labs in schools across the country. The bank is investing 23 million shillings in the nationwide project and will see 1,500 computers donated to different schools in the coming months. Now, the initiative that kicked off at the Kikuyu Township Primary School with a donation of 20 desktop computers that are fully networked and fitted with relevant software to support learning. Welcome back. Now we are talking about the transport sector. On August the 9th, the Transport Ministry announced full resumption of, resumption of full capacity in all Matatus and other public service vehicles. What has that been like for a sector that was hard hit? What is the recovery like? And indeed, how are they doing with self-regulation? And more importantly, do you as a passenger in our PSVs feel safe in your transport day to day. My guests, as I'd introduced a little while earlier, Edwin Mukabana from the Kenya Bus Service and the Federation of Public Transport Sector, and we've also got Edwin Mucheche. Thank you very much. Bwana Mucheche as well from the Crew Welfare Association. Let me begin with you, Edwin, and let's talk about the impact of the restrictions. Now, before full resumption, it's been about 6 weeks. What were the losses suffered in terms of perhaps, jobs, in terms of money? Explain to us the situation before we saw the resumption on the 9th of August.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to this show. It has been a very hard time for the transport sector, especially the PSV transport sector. What happened is that the government came in with protocols. The first one being that there was social distancing, so we carry at 50% capacity. They brought in the curfew. That meant that we reduced the bus hours of operation. They told people, do not come to Nairobi because Nairobi is a hot area. People stayed at home, and therefore we could not carry people who used to come to Nairobi to the estates. They told people work from home. People worked from home, and they're still working from home up to now. Things have changed. At that time, people feared to travel. Quite a number of people who were traveling through the PSVs decided to use Uber or other means. So there was a shift in all that. In addition, there were costs that we started incurring. Like we had to have sanitizers. We had to have the thermal guns on the buses. We had to fumigate the vehicles every time. And in addition, the government came in with something that was funny, that you have to get a compliance certificate. Now, getting that compliance certificate came with certain costs that we could not believe because no receipts were being given to us. So you find that whereas the protocols were meant to create some health benefits, it ended up also being very, very affected our businesses so much. So at the end of the day, the people who are doing long distance, for example, they shut down completely. They couldn't travel. For people who are doing urban transport, the passengers at 50% meant that they couldn't carry as many people they want. So the revenues went down, the trips went down, and yes, across the country we lost 127,000 jobs. And you can see that with the families.
Yeah.
Our industry does not only feed crew, but it also feeds even other people along the route, the so-called kamangiras. So it became so difficult for the whole industry. Our workers are normally youthful, and they come from not so high places of staying. You can imagine what happened. We cut down jobs, people went home, people suffered, and yes, we had a bit of infections. Right. So quite a number of people suffered. Yeah,
and 127,000 jobs is no mean feat, in any economy, regardless of what is happening. But what you talk about is just that delicate balance between managing, livelihoods and protecting lives as well, that had a knock-on effect on the economy, on various sectors. And like you so well put it, this had a great impact. Now, of course, the ones who, like you're talking about, the jobs, is Wilfred Mucheche and those who are in his sector with the Matatu Crew Welfare Association. What was it like? I mean, we've heard about the jobs that were lost, but from your perspective, from the crew, Matatu Crew perspective, what was this like before we even get to August 9th when you are now allowed to carry full capacity? Just give us a sense of how COVID has impacted your business, your jobs, and those in your sector.
First, I want to thank you for inviting me for the first time. And it has been really a difficult moment. As the workers, the crew, a lot of us really got hit hard. Most of the people who are doing public long distance, they were totally laid off. And then the town service, most of the investors, because the income they were getting at times were not able to sustain the business. So most of them parked their vehicles, so there was a very big loss to the workers, and it became really untenable. Yeah. But still, there are challenges in the industry, because apparently most of our crews, they're not on contracts. They work on a daily basis. So you see there were a lot of problems to our crew, we try to manage. It's not been easy.
So tell us, for many of us, perhaps we see you know, a driver and a tout, right? But talk to us about the crew. Mkwangapi, how many are they, you know, and what work do they do?
The beneficiary in public transport, actually the youth, most of the youth after school, most of them, they get jobs actually in the public transport.
Right. Actually
from universities, people, before they get formal employment, they're housed in the public transport. So we have almost all the chunks of people in the industry. So we have the driver, the co-driver, that's the conductor. We have stage attendants. In quotes, we call them kamageras, the people who help the co-drivers to pick passengers.
Yes.
Then we have managers. Okay. So all those are people that we categorize to be crew. To be Matatu crew. Matatu crew, yeah.
And like you're saying, you know, there were other issues, and it's important that you raise that, because we'll also talk about, you know, the business of that and the fact that, you know, they're not on contract. And so, you know, for a lot of them, immediately something like this happens, you know, they will be the first to go, and perhaps without any security in terms of saying, okay, let's keep you on for this amount of time, and let's try and see what we can do. Those would be the easiest for you know, an owner to just say, okay, you know, maisha ni ngumu, so step aside. So we'll come to that in a moment. That's a very important point that you've raised. So let's talk about things now. Still with you, Wilfred, now that it's been since August 9th, when now you are allowed to carry full capacity. Have things improved for the crew? Are the jobs back?
Things have not improved. Jobs are back, yes, but things have not improved. Because apparently the economy has shrunk, has shrunk. So things have not changed. Actually now, we think we did a mistake of asking the full capacity.
Oh, yeah?
Because apparently now the investors are paying full insurance covers. The county government has hiked the parking fee. Still the total income per day is the same. Okay. Because apparently people still are working from home. Yeah. Because most of the companies realized we can work, you know, from home. Yeah. We don't need to have offices in town. Yeah. So because of that effect, so still I don't think still there's a lot of challenges. Still some
depressed revenues. Edmonds, same thing. He's raising some important issues.
I wanted to mention that before that, the industry lost a lot of money. We estimate close to 50 billion shillings was lost across the whole country in lost revenue. Yeah. Now, come opening up, I was with the CS when we were announcing this.
Christopher Bore,
and the assumption we thought is that things were going to improve. We were wrong. In fact, the government went around saying, do not increase fares, or all those things. We were wrong. So what happened is that when we increased the installed capacity seats, the total seats in the system, and the passengers that were traveling were few, we started scrambling for the same passengers. And what happened? The fares dropped lower than they used to be before. So there was no benefit. But the costs remained. In fact, the government said, you promised that you are going to do self-regulation. Therefore, we want to see what you are doing. So we went in further to invest. Money did not come. The insurance company, like you said, came and said, now you're carrying full capacity. If you do not carry, if you don't take correct cover, we'll repudiate the insurance. So we had to go to insurance. Last week, the county government comes and says, we had given you a rebate for carrying fewer passengers. Now you are carrying full capacity. We are not accepting. In fact, we've just done a letter to DG, Nairobi County Government, telling him that we can't afford because this situation continues to be worse than it was. And this is not just in Kenya. I think the whole public transport industry is being affected across the whole world. Yeah. Because people are still, when you say people travel full capacity, some people are saying, no. I don't want to get into public transport because probably I would be infected. But we say, but your children are going to school where they are now sitting, some of them 100, and they're coming home. So this thing is something that we are asking passengers to come. We'll ensure that the sanitization is there, that the masks, they must put them on. We'll open windows. We'll do fumigation of the buses.
And we'll talk about, you know, the self-regulation, because also that was something that the, you know, Chief Administrative Secretary talked about as something that would need to be key, and what that means for you, even in terms of cost and doing that. But have you ever been able to charge higher fares?
We tried. In fact, we went out and gave when the fuel increase went up, we said we are allowing our people to go 20% higher. It didn't go. In fact...
yes, and a quick one, I want to also hear from him, because you are the guys now charging the fare. Are you able to charge higher fares?
It's not possible.
Why?
Because apparently we are many service providers.
Okay.
Public transport, we are many.
Yeah.
And you see, there are very few people who are using these services. So basically you cannot sell something expensive when the demand is totally low. Okay. So it's not possible to hike fares.
And an interesting one.
And even there's something in transport called willingness to pay and ability to pay.
Yes.
We do not have our people outside there with the ability to pay.
Okay. And we'll come and talk a little bit more about that, particularly regarding you know, the additional cost of abiding by the protocols, which I'm sure is something we'll talk about. So willingness to pay, ability to pay, like he says, the demand is low. So let's see what's happening actually out there on the streets. We're in here, but what is the public transport sector looking like out there? Our Faisal Ahmed is out on the streets of Nairobi. I believe he's on Tom Mboya Street, and he joins me now to talk about what things are like for passengers there. Faisal, are the bus stops as busy as they once were before, you know, COVID started, before the restrictions came in, now that we're back to 100% capacity? Faisal Ahmed, can you hear me? On the streets of Nairobi, I think on Tom Mboya Street, we're just trying to take a look at what the situation looked like before and what it looks like now. It's been about 6 weeks since the resumption of full capacity. What do the bus stops look like, Faisal? All right, I think we have a challenge. Faisal, okay.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. As you rightfully stated, there are a lot of issues that are facing the transport sector generally in the country, and specifically the Matatu industry. Some of the people that I was talking to here at the commercial stage, where there are different buses that ply different parts of the city, including Embakasi and Buruburu. Some of the main issues that they were telling me include the increase in fuel prices, and they are unable to increase the fares because they understand that we are currently amidst a tough economic time. As you can see behind me, the banner here on this bus actually states that it's 50 shillings to Buruburu, where ordinarily, if things, ordinarily comparing this to before COVID, it would have been at around 70 shillings. And they're saying this despite fuel prices going up, they cannot actually increase their fuel. Maybe if you could just speak to one of the operators here and see what they think about that. Sasa? Habari? Okay, she's a bit camera shy. Maybe you can just speak to a few more operators here and see what they think about the current situation. From fuel prices, one of the other issues that they were talking about is the issue of double taxation. Them paying taxes both to the national government through NTSA and also paying taxes to the county government. That is things to do with parking and also operating licenses. And they say that that has been one of the biggest issues. Habari ya lunchtime?
Niko poa sana.
Uko salama? Labda uweze kutuelezea kama watu wa kufanya kazi kwa matatu, mmekuwa mkipata issues gani? Especially kumekuwa na maneno ya kubeba half capacity, na sasa hizi bei ya mafuta imeongezeka. Kazi imekuwaje?
Kwa sasa hivi nasema kazi imekuwa ngumu, sio kama vile ilikuwa kitambo. Vile mafuta imeongezeka, imebidi hata wenyewe wanataka pesa yao. So imebidi wenye wafanye kazi, sisi ndio tunaumia. Tu mwenyewe anataka pesa yake yote umweke ya target. So wafanye kazi ndio tunaumia. Ile pesa ya mafuta yenye bei ya mafuta venye ilikuwa chini, sasa hivi hatuwezi ongezea abiria bei. Ukimwongezea bei ataondokea kwa hiyo kwa gari yako. Wahamie sako nyingine. Sasa inabidi kwa ile bei tulikuwa tunabeba kitambo, bei ni ile ile, lakini kwa mshahara sisi wafanyikazi ndio tunaumia.
Na tukiangalia hii gari yako tunaona watu wote wenye ile sheria zile kwa na government ndio muweze kukubaliwa kuweza kubeba full capacity.
Sheria tunafuatilia lakini ni kwa uchache. Huwezi lazimiza abiria afae maski. Saa zingine unaweza mwambia afae na akatae. Hakuna kitu unaweza mfanyia. Itabidi ukubali na umpepe. Tukimlazimiza anashuka kwa gari.
Labda changamoto gani zingine mnapata kwa hii kazi yenu mkiendelea kufanya kila siku?
Changamoto ni mingi lakini naweza sema kwa sasa ni mshahara, hatuna mshahara. Hatupati pesa.
Sawa. Maybe if I could just speak to another operator to see what their experiences have been. Excuse, boss. Labda over the last 1 year biashara imekuwa aje? Mmekuwa mkibeba watu aje na maneno ya COVID, na pia tumeona vitu kama fuel prices zimeongezeka.
Fuel prices zimeongezeka. Alafu the past 1 year tumetezeka sana kwa sababu
Oh, it's such a shame that we had a problem with that connection with Faisal Ahmed, who's, you know, in Tomboya Street here in Nairobi. But he had quite a few interesting things to say. I think we have him back. Maybe we can just have him finish.
Na mwenyewe baada ya Andre kupunguza taa. Unapata unaumia, at the end of the day unaenda kwa nyumba bure.
Asante sana. At the commercial bus stop, and as I had earlier stated, another issue that they were they actually in the sector specifically.
All right, we've tried our best with that signal, but I think we got enough from Faisal speaking to operators there. You know, a quick reaction from you, Wilfred?
Yeah, I think that's the true picture of what these guys are going through.
Yeah.
And I think it's a problem which I think we'll have a sitting and with Mukabana, and we try to address it, because apparently, you know, there's much that we speak and we don't actualize it.
Yeah.
Like now, these guys are not on contract. At times it's totally difficult even to get NHIs, to pay that for NHIs. So there are a lot of challenges that we think we need to have an honest discussion between the investors and the workers. We see what best can we do so that we can make a better public transport industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the requirements for self-regulation. I believe the CS Obure, on that August the 7th, when he was announcing the resumption 2 days later, the following Monday, talked about self-regulation being key.
Yeah.
And the list of what you're supposed to do is quite lengthy. So make sure all passengers wear face masks. We heard from the operator there that you can't make people do it if they don't want to. Sanitize before boarding, temperature screening. The crew should have 3-ply face masks. The crew should undergo frequent testing. Vehicles should be disinfected after every trip. Prohibit hawking and preaching on buses. And it just goes on and on. I mean, this is quite the list of regulations. How is this going for you?
It's happening in some areas it's not happening. I think on long distance is where we have had a lot of successes, because then the people are going to travel for a longer distance.
Time, yes.
But for short distances, it has been a challenge. You're picking somebody along the route. You don't want to leave him. It depends at what time of the day it is. Do you leave that person? And I must say also, I don't think all of us have been very good. It's good to own up, because it's important that we tell our people outside there that some of us have not done very well, have not enforced the way we expect it to be. And we want to insist that what was put there is doable. We were very lucky that we were allowed to carry full capacity. And it was after a lot of discussion and a lot of push and pull. Yeah. So that we were given that, it's important that we do it. Yeah. In terms of self-regulation, we want to tell our people that we have no option but to ensure that we do it. Despite the fact it is expensive, we are talking about lives here, we have to ensure that we do it.
Because there's things here like an internal hotline to be prominently displayed for use by commuters and other road users in case of any incidents.
By the way, that is not a new thing. It's already in the TSA Act that every PSV vehicle is supposed to have a number inside to ensure that if somebody has got a problem, they call the hotline. So it's not a new thing. a number of things that were put there are things that we ought to do, but we are not doing. Okay. So I don't see that one as being a problem. I know there was a number that the government wanted to bring in, which was, I think, 988, and we rejected that. We'd like to thank the Ministry of Transport for having agreed to that, because we didn't know what it was going to do, and it was going to take more money from us. But insofar as the actual number that is supposed to be in our bus that somebody is supposed to report, it is necessary that every vehicle should have it. Yeah. What
is it like, and self-regulating and making sure that these things are there? What are some of the challenges? Where have you managed to do well? What are some of the challenges? Like we had, making people wear masks is really a personal responsibility. We can't expect the crew to forcefully put them on. But talk to us about all of these others. Vehicles being disinfected after every trip. How does that work with the short distances that you have?
There are things that are not practical, and I'm sorry though, but I have to say it. There are things which are in the Ministry of things which are not practical in per se, because look at the scenarios. Most of the picking points, like in Nairobi, you can have instances like go to railway station. There are no picking points. Vehicles are picking passengers as they're moving. So even sanitizing people is not possible. Fumigation, fumigation of vehicles per trip is not, it can never work, it won't work.
So how often do you disinfect now?
At least once a day. Once the vehicle has been cleaned after the day, it's fumigated. That is what is practical. We don't need to lie. You need to, work on things which are practical and workable. Yeah, and the issue, as Mukabana said, issues of commuter services, town services, vehicles, there are challenges because you pick somebody as less than a kilometer, 1 kilometer, and he has a light, lights. There are those challenges. So basically, there are problems in town service. We cannot have town service and long distance. Doing the same things.
Absolutely.
But there was something else.
Quickly, because I want to take a break.
Yes, when we were talking about these protocols that were put in place, sometimes we wonder whether the quality, you pick a sanitizer, you don't know what quality it is. You pick a face mask, sometimes you don't know what quality it is. You use detergents for cleaning, you don't know. So there was an issue of quality that we wanted to know whether there is any standardization and who follows up on those standardization to ensure that whatever we are buying and we are using, for example, the thermogans, sometimes you buy one, you don't know whether it is working correctly, the crew has not been taught.
30 degrees, in which case you'd be dead.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Totally understood. And just the challenges between long distance and town service. I mean, you pick somebody on the way, do you have time to sanitize them, check their temperature before they board? Some of the things that we're discussing here. But also importantly, we'd like to hear from you. Do you feel safe in using public transport now that we are back to full capacity? And what is that like for you? Do you agree with them? Some of the things they're saying are unpractical, or what is your view in this space as a user of PSVs in the country? We continue to talk about recovery of this sector. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what else ails the public service transport sector in the country. Plus, we'll be hearing from Marianne Nyambura all the way in Nakuru. This is Business Now. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. This is Business Now. We're taking a look at the recovery of the Matatu sector in this country. It's been over 18 months since the arrival of COVID-19 in the country, and just about 6 weeks or so since Matatus were allowed to carry to full capacity. That is from August the 9th of this year. What is the sector looking like in terms of recovery, and indeed what are the other issues that are ailing the sector, challenges that need to be addressed? Let's, before we carry on with my guests in studio, I'm still with Edwins Mukabana and Wilfred Mocheche from the Matatu Crew Welfare Association. But let's see what's happening. As they say, kwa ground vitu ni tofauti. Marianne Nyambura is on the ground for us in Nakuru, and she joins us now. Marianne?
Well, indeed, Yvonne, the The COVID-19 situation has only exacerbated the situation as regards to the Matatu sector, which was once a lucrative business, but currently, owing to the COVID-19 situation, the COVID protocols, including vaccination of drivers, as well as including other different measures, is something that has really taken a toll on the Matatu business in general. And in Nakuru County, the situation is similar to what we're seeing the guests in studio talk about. I will be engaging the Central Rift Matatu Owners Association, a chairperson who will just give a highlight of what exactly this the situation is like. And kindly, if you just start off with, you represent 83 SACCOs in Nakuru County in general. Labda tukiangazia kwamba sekta kama hii ya matatu, je, ni vipi ambavyo mmeweza kuathirika?
Kuathirika, tumeathirika pakubwa, sababu sasa already mafuta imepanda, na wakati capacity imerudishwa tumekuwa na shida because already wale watu tulikuwa tukifanya kazi nao tulikuwa tumewasimamisha, na pia gari nyingi zetu zilikuwa grounded sababu sasa ya malons hatukuwa tumeweza kulipa sababu ya zile shida ambayo imekuwa. Alafu hii mambo ya vaccination, drivers wetu hawajakuwa vaccinated, na unakuta ya kwamba customers wengi wanataka kutumia bado magari yao sababu bado wanaongopa gari za abiria. Kwa hivyo bado tuko na shida because biashara bado hajarudi vile ilikuwa hapo mbeleni. Kwa hivyo tunaomba ya kwamba serikali iweze kurudisha hii fuel chini, ndio sasa iweze kutusaidia kuweza kuamuka, sababu sasa already biashara ya matatu bado iko chini na bado iko na changamoto mingi because hata insurance bado, hata magari mengi kulipa insurance ni changamoto, na hata hii fare ni ya kwamba customers hawataki kuongezewa fare sababu sasa wanasema pia wameathirika. Kwa hivyo bado tuko na shida. Yes.
Tukiangazia masuala ya mafuta kuongezeka, bei ya mafuta kuongezeka, pengine uweze kutueleza magari ambayo unayo ni ya magari ya masafa marefu, yes, kama maeneo ya Nairobi kuelekea Busia. Je, kuna ile bei ama fare mmeweza kuongeza kidogo ili kuhakikisha kwamba fuel vile ambavyo mafuta iliongezeka mmeweza kuidhibiti?
Hiyo ni kweli, fare tumeongeza kidogo, but unakuta ya kwamba ile profit margin yetu imeenda kidogo because now comparing the rising of the fuel and the fare, unakuta ya kwamba ile profit margin yetu imeenda chini kidogo, na tunaona afadhali iende chini ili ya kwamba tuweze kubaki kwa biashara. Kwa hivyo bado tu ni maintain tu biashara ili tusiondoke kwa biashara, but bado tuko na shida. Yes.
Ukiangalia suluhu, je, unadhani kwamba nini haswa kinafaa kufanyika? Tumeona kwamba serikali imeweza kuwaruhusu kuweza kubeba abiria full capacity. Pengine unaona suluhu kwa sasa ni gani ili kuhakikisha kwamba sekta hii imerudi pale mahali ambapo ilikuwa?
Kwanza, namba moja, serikali ifikirie kurudisha mafuta chini. Ya pili, tunataka vaccination ifanywe kwa all stages. Kama ni kila stage, tunataka drivers wetu wakuwa vaccinated ili ya kwamba abiria waache kuongopa because bado abiria wanaongopa kuingia kwa matatu ambao imepepa capacity, na hiyo wakifanya vaccination iweze kuvaccinatiwa our drivers, pia hiyo itatupatia opportunity ya kuweza kufanya biashara bila kuongopa. Yes.
Well, indeed, Yvonne, that is the situation and the cry of course, many Matatu operators in Nakuru County as well as other areas. Pointers to do with vaccination exercise to the drivers, as well as a cry on the downward reduction of the fuel prices in the country, which they say is really affecting their business, and business at the moment is really not doing as well. Back to you in studio.
Thank you, Marianne Nyambura, live for us in Nakuru. And I will get to your feedback in a moment because I see quite a bit of that on Twitter. Remember to keep that coming. The hashtag is Business Now at Citizen TV Kenya, at Yvonne Okwara. I want to pick up on what Marianne has talked about, which is the issue of vaccination. Wilfred, are your crew being vaccinated? Has the government prioritized you? I know there was a request to, put you on the priority list. If there is anybody that encounters and interacts with people, more people in a day, I would imagine, would be Matatu crew. Is the government doing anything in terms of prioritizing Matatu crew towards vaccination?
They have not done that, and there was a sensation program by MOA and other organizations to vaccinate the crews, the Matatu people in public transport, which I think it's not yet successful. It has not been done well. So we
the
feel like
who are vaccinated, how are they getting vaccinated? Is it
no voluntarily? You go to
okay.
vaccination facility,
Okay.
you vaccinate. You are vaccinated.
All right.
We have not had a specific that these facilities doing people from public transport.
Okay.
We've not had that.
And that would be important for you. Why?
Very,
Tell us about why that
very,
means
very,
something.
very important, because one, in a single vehicle,
Yeah.
a 33-seater, a conductor get in contact with over 1,000 people in a single day.
Wow.
Because a vehicle that does around 7 trips,
Yeah.
33 times
So
that.
squad ngapi in a day?
7.
7.
Yes.
Okay.
7,
If you're carrying
33.
full capacity, yeah, that's...
You know, that's like 14 now.
Okay.
Because it's to and fro.
Yeah.
Those are 14 trips. 33 times 14. You see, that's a chunk of number of people.
Right.
And again, we are still using cash.
Yeah.
You get, so you see, and the most risk thing is money, and the handling money. And you see, you cannot pick money and sanitize every minute. It's not possible.
That is true. That is not practically possible. Edwin, this is something you discussed at that meeting.
Yeah, we did discuss. Unfortunately, we wanted the government to declare that Matatu crew are frontline workers. Unfortunately, they didn't. But there have been efforts by Kenya Private Sector Alliance to have an outreach. One of our member associations, MOA, has done one. I think they did about 5,000 people. But that was just a sensitization.
How many are we dealing with, Matatu?
We're
across
talking
the
of
country?
across
Do
the
we know?
country.
Do we have a number?
Close to 500,000.
500,000.
Yes,
Okay.
people who are working in the Matatu industry. And you're not just talking about the employees, you're talking of people who are milling around the whole stage. Right. So we would expect that the government is going to put an outreach at every stage in the main town centers and ensure that there is a sensitization, which we are willing to participate as a federation to ensure that all our crew are vaccinated.
And yes, and beyond sensitization, to actually, you know, have a vaccination exercise that is targeted at those working in the public service transport sector. So Wilfred, I know we've talked about COVID quite a bit, but I have a few minutes. I just want to talk about some of the other issues that are affecting the sector. At the start of the show, we said, you know, there's resumption to carrying full capacity, but then you meet other issues like fuel price increase. So talk to us about some of the other, you know, if you can, in just a few minutes, some of the other issues that are affecting the public transport sector.
One, the biggest issue that which has just hit us hard is the fuel prices. Yeah. And from where I'm seated, I think the government should do something better, because we need to have reserves. We don't have to have a fluctuation every month. So the government has to invest so that we can have a reserve. At least we know the prices can be standardized
for a while.
At least for half an year or so.
Okay.
Then the other issues like now what the government is trying to do, the location of public transport vehicle from CBD, which I think is ill-timed. It's not going to address the problem that we have of congestion.
Why not?
You see, for instance now, for like the Runa Park, it cannot address the challenge that we have of decongestion, because apparently what we are talking about is the time you take from one point to getting to CBD. So if we want to terminate all the vehicles at Runa Park, so you see there will be a lot of, slow traffic jam on Ngong Road, on Langata Road. So this one can extend to the farthest end of Ngong Road, to up to like Junction. And then there's no need, you drop somebody at Runa Park, then you put him in another bus to bring to the CBD. It does not make sense. And apparently, then, in terms of numbers, the public transport vehicles are not many. The private vehicles are many. So I think the government it should have prioritized to having parking for personal vehicles outskirts of the CBD. Then we get these buses, pick them from those outskirts of the CBD to the CBD, the private vehicle owners. Okay. So that that can be able to address that problem.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Your final words, Edwin, on the sector in general?
Yeah, the sector in general. First of all, I would like to plead that the government needs to open up the night travel, so that the people with the big buses, they have packed about 300 buses, 400 buses per company in Mombasa and all over, because they are not. The machine was meant to go to and fro, to and fro. Yes. Now it's only doing halfway. So those ones have not made anything. Two, there are other issues that are affecting the industry. Right now, our loans have not been structured at all. And if you realize, the central bank did discuss and said that we are among the highest defaulters. And we would like to encourage that we should be able to be allowed some time. And they should stop taking us to credit reference bureaus, because now we are being taken to credit reference bureaus. That means that you will not do any business at all. These are issues that we would like to be addressed. There are many other issues like insurance. There's parking fee. Yeah. Why would the council, the county government start increasing parking fee at this stage?
Just a short while after
short while. Why wouldn't they wait?
Resumed full capacity.
Yes, yeah. And they should understand that the truth of the matter is that the private sector has suffered a lot more than the public sector. There are very few things, salaries, reduction of people in the public sector has not been affected much. But what we are going through in the private sector is something that we need government to recognize and be assisted to get out of it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Edwin Mukabana and Wilfred Mocheche. Thank you for speaking with us on what is happening in the Matatu sector and the recovery. It's not good news, not just yet. I will be getting to your feedback in a moment. But first, for our weekly Made in Kenya segment. Now, technological advancements have affected almost every sector in the world, and the construction industry has not been left behind. Kenyans are looking for cheaper ways to build their homes and other structures, with the latest technology in block making taking center stage. Our Edward Chwea visited a project in Kitui, which now prides itself in making interlocking blocks, and filed this report.
Kenya is a concrete jungle. Every turn is a building established, all mushrooming. And with this, the demand for building materials is ever present, providing opportunity for those who can to cash in and introduce new innovations. Interlocking blocks is one such technology, and in Kitui County, these has picked up like bushfire.
These construction materials are very easily made. You only use sand, very little cement, little water, and within a few days it cures, it dries up.
And to cash in on this, the Kitui County government has established the County Youth Development Center, popularly known as Kikoidek, run by young people to create employment. Jenny Mutua is the manager of this ambitious project.
It's a very simple process, but if you miss one step, you are done. Sieve the sand that we normally use to remove all the impurities. If you don't sieve your sand, it will burst. We come to the preparation stage. The ratios there, they are very, very important. 1 bag of cement, 2 wheelbarrows of sand, and then 9 wheelbarrows of loose soil. The soil, we just dig it in our compound, add some water, just very little water. We use the watering can just to sprinkle, and then we mix it properly. We take it to the machine. Set the right pressure such that the block is going to be properly compacted and the sizes of the block are going to be the right ones. So if you don't set the pressure properly, you'll find that some are bulging, others are long, others are not having the right shape. The secret of the interlocking block, it is the groove where they interlock properly. It is taken to a staking ground. We immediately place them, we cover them so that they are not exposed to any environmental interference. It is given enough water very early in the morning and late in the evening for 14 good days to make sure that that thing becomes very hard, and then on the 16th day, we can release the block to our customer.
This technology, Jen says, has helped them reduce the cost of building.
One, we don't use water for construction. We don't use sand, concrete, cement. We just interlock the blocks. Comparing with other blocks, it is relatively affordable. We've engaged 300 employees, and also now we are going an extra mile of training the fundis.
This war here would have cost us nearly, if we were using other form of materials, like 35 million shillings, or that nearly 1 kilometer wall, but it only cost us about 10 million shillings.
The demand for the blocks has gone high in Kitui, and a number of institutions are already taking it up.
Kutumia haya mawe ni rahisi sana kwa maana haina gharama nyingi sana. Nimetumia muda mchache na nimetumia pesa kidogo kutengeneza hii ukuta.
But even as the popularity of interlocking blocks grows, the challenge remains training more local masons on how to use them.
We have few fundis who are trained on this technology. And if you get a bad fundi to do your work, it will never come out well. But what we are doing about that challenge, here we are also training fundis who can at least be handed over to the market.
The employment opportunity that we have created for those young men and women that you saw is enormous. Those young men you see there also have their families, their children. They will never come to ask government to give them bursaries.
Edward Chwea, Business Now, Citizen TV.
And this country is certainly not short of businesses that are made in Kenya, improving the lives of Kenyans around the country. And we've been focusing on the Matatu sector, which we're told by my guests employs well over 500,000 Kenyans, and over 120,000 jobs were lost in the last year or so. They're obviously looking for recovery. I would like to thank you, gentlemen, very much for coming and making the time to just express some of the issues that are affecting the sector, not just COVID related, but others as well. And we look forward to that. I have some feedback here on Twitter. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. There's one here that says the traffic policemen should not be on the roads because they don't enforce the protocols. Charles Kithinji says, Yvonne, those gentlemen are very honest. What I've heard them say is the reality. Personally, I feel safe in Amathri because I use a mask and I got vaccinated. And quite a few others. Abdirahman Mohammed Ali says, I think in line with what you were saying about, the private sector being hardest hit during COVID, he says it's been tough and still worse for many SMEs and corporates who are struggling to make business happen in a difficult situation where many jobs have been lost. But what the government is doing is not enough. We're just looking at the balcony thinking one day we're going to be okay. Well, we do wish you all the best with that. We've articulated some of the issues and hopefully they will be addressed in terms of vaccination. But there's also the point on personal responsibility. When you're in a matatu, please put on your mask and put it on properly. Don't expect the crew to enforce that. Unataka wakushike chini wakuvalishe mask by force, and when you put it on, it has to cover your nose as well. All right, so let's do that, and we hope that there will be some improvements in this very vibrant, very important sector in Kenya's economy. The sort of things we focus on here on the show on Business Now every single Monday. Let's leave it there for now. We'll see you again next week. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.